This is the Scorer to Follow podcast.
It's the Scorer to Follow podcast. I'm your host, Neil Mundy, and to my right, as always, Mark Annals.
Hello.
And opposite me, as always, Dan Laundy.
Hello.
This week, we're just going to do a bit of a review of the week's European action, including the Europa League.
Maybe sure? Can we be bothered to touch about on that?
I think we need to talk about it.
Mention it.
Yeah, it needs a desultory mention, I think. We're going to touch on what's happened to the Liverpool fans when they went out to Seville. Also talk about Tony Pulis as he has been sacked, and then we're going to finish up with a slight preview of the weekend's action. So let's get straight into it. Champions League happened again this week, of course. Mixed results for the English clubs, but it's increasingly looking like most, if not all of them, is going to go through, Dan. So, I mean, there's much talk, as always is at this time in the media, of a massive rebirth for English clubs. Do you buy into that, or do you think it's just a bit of a, some of them have had an easy group and they've just sort of got a bit lucky?
I don't think it's easy group. I mean, don't get me wrong, Man United have had a relatively comfortable group, but I think it's just cyclical to me. I think the Spanish clubs perhaps had a bit of a drop off. Madrid have won it 2 years back to back. Perhaps the appetite isn't there from them so much. Buying an older squad these days, I think.
Yeah.
PSG are the ones I think to watch, aren't they? They're the big threat to the English sides getting through.
Yeah, it seems that way at the moment. I mean, you can always have a bit of a random side turning up like Monaco did last year, Mark. But it does seem that some of the English clubs, City in particular, United probably as well, despite losing, are probably well equipped to go deep into this competition at the moment.
Yeah. City have obviously I think they've qualified now, haven't they?
Yeah.
And just found it pretty easy going. They've comfortably won their group.
Good win, Napoli.
Naples. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, not an easy place to go.
Do you think they've sort of earned their wings a bit, because they had a couple of years where they were getting a tough group? Usually seem to have Barcelona in it. And not getting very far. And do you think they've sort of grown? Because I remember back in the 90s, I remember United getting thumped by Barcelona and teams like that in the mid 90s, and it looked like they were nowhere near sort of getting into the later stages. Do you think that's sort of now starting to happen with City a bit? Do you think they're sort of finding their feet?
Yeah, I think it's helped them join these teams earlier. When they first started getting in the Champions League, it's given them the big test straight away.
Yeah.
And it's made them sort of a bit more well equipped now coming into it. And you look at their squad, and definitely in the Premier League, but you say in quite a lot of Europe as well, just the biggest squad depth you can ask for, really.
But their growth in Europe, is that because they've got the money to go out and buy all these great players, which I think is arguably why the Premier League sides have started to improve this year? Or is it, in their case, because they've got Pep Guardiola? Has he had an impact now on that team that's enabling them to perhaps look at winning the European Cup?
Yeah, as with so many of these things, it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? So, obviously they had previous managers that had good European experience. Pellegrini was a very experienced manager. Mancini had obviously had European experience, but he has obviously been at the highest level for some time, coaching in Barcelona and Bayern, two of the biggest clubs in Europe. And it's sort of telling that all of a sudden City were looking kind of like, not also rans, but in a pack of teams that you would say were decent, they're suddenly looking very much like front runners that you would think would go far in the competition all of a sudden.
I mean, they ran Madrid quite close last year, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
over the 2 legs. I forget the result, but
no, it's Monaco they went out to last year, wasn't it? They got beat by Monaco. It must have been the year before that way.
Was it?
Yeah, because they got beat by Monaco last year.
So many European games, it all just meshes into one.
Well, this is and I suppose it's actually that brings us quite nicely on to the other point, because I think people get fatigued with the same teams playing each other. So probably actually, if the English teams are a bit on the rise, that'll give it a bit of change. I mean, it will become a bit of a joke at one point because it's Liverpool against Chelsea every season. But the fact is those sort of teams haven't really been able to face each other, and for a while in Europe it's been Barcelona versus Bayern, Real Madrid versus Bayern in the semi-finals. So it will actually be interesting if one or two of them make it.
The thing is, I think people want to see like the superpowers collide, and they want to see those games and be entertained by them. But like I say, I think it comes to a point where if you've seen Bayern play Barca 6 times in 3 years or something along them lines, you want to see something new. And I actually think that's something perhaps UEFA need to look at in years to come. I think they are actually with the new seeding that came in this year. I can't see it's going to make a huge difference actually.
Is that separate to, because I know like now there's going to be no qualifier for the 4th place team in England, I believe. Might have to check that, but I'm sure I did.
Oh, because of the coefficient.
Sure, I heard
they're
that
just going to walk straight in there.
I think they were just gonna. I think what I heard was they were just gonna do away with that, but I'm not quite sure why. But I suppose we should go on to touch on sort of some of the various teams actually weeks. So Spurs obviously had a very good win, and again it's another one of those things, Dan, where a bit like City, looks like they were finding their feet for a couple of seasons, and it looks like they're kind of getting there now. I mean, it's noticeable that Pochettino sort of alluded to the fact that they had easier groups and didn't do very well in them, and this time they've had a really tough group and they've got a really good chance of finishing top.
Yeah, I'm amazed because obviously,
excuse me,
Poch has got this reputation of not doing so well away at the big top 6 sides in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And yet, away from home in Europe against top sides, he seems to be able to, put the right tactics and team together. I don't know that it's that Spurs have found their feet. I suppose they have. They've obviously grown as a squad. But I think actually, I don't want to be too negative about it, but when I look back at some of the fixtures, particularly the opening game against Dortmund, Wembley, I mean that could quite easily have gone their way. They were comfortably the better side that night, and if you start off on a weaker footing, because obviously Spurs got a result in the end, how they lost that game and lost it comfortably, it sort of sets the tone. And then they've been thinking back to last year. So I actually think getting that result, despite the performance or being overrun early by Dortmund, was perhaps key to them sort of taking it into the rest of the group.
Yeah, I think. Well, Mark, I think that's an interesting point, because I think especially, you can make this argument about all football and Premier League and everything, but I think especially in the Champions League, a lot is built on moments. You and I have seen teams do well. Both our teams do well in the competition in the past, but a lot of it's just been down to how you're managing the big moments in those games, because it is so costly. They can be on a knife edge, can go one way or the other. And I think that's that Spurs managed a good moment there in terms of getting a result out of that game.
Yeah, definitely. I think well, you've already alluded to it, Dan. That you actually talked about a really hard group and
group of death.
Yeah. The so-called group of death. But they've beaten Madrid. They've beaten Dortmund
twice.
Yeah. So I think it just at the end of the day, like there's no easy games when it comes to European football. But,
Celtic maybe.
Well,
Maribor possibly.
Okay, there are some teams.
Sorry,
but
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's a valid point though. And especially you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, for example, Celtic until this season were very good at home. They beat lots of Barcelona there, so it's not an easy game really.
To give Spurs proper credit, I mean, at the start of the campaign when the draw was done, didn't see them making it through that group. Even trying to be positive, I couldn't quite see where they'd get enough points.
Well, no one gave them a chance really, did they?
So to win the group, which they have, and with a game to spare, it's pretty impressive. Whatever they go on to do now, that's an exceptional performance. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, no, they have done well. They have done very well.
They have. Move on to Liverpool, who I think are sort of a bit more still, I think, very much finding their feet in the competition still. So I think they're a bit further back than City and Spurs, as you'd imagine, because they've not been in it for some time. Obviously, a strange game. I think it's a weird one, actually, because I've watched it back and taken the passion out of it, and you think, actually, in the first half, we scored 3 goals, but we weren't playing that well. And Sevilla had a couple of chances, and you're thinking, actually, obviously the way it ends up a 3-3 draw is very disappointing, but you think it's probably a just result, because you look at the game and neither team really had control of it, and both teams were just giving up chances. So.
But once you're 3-0 up at half time, can you allow yourself to call it a just result? Because surely whether or not you deserve that lead, you have to manage the rest of the game.
I agree totally, but then I think the only thing you would say is that they hadn't managed the first half particularly well either. They just managed to score 3 goals, so which sounds absolutely crazy, but this team is a bit crazy at the moment. And I think it's just a case of taking the rough with the smooth. They're obviously still in with a decent chance of qualifying and a decent chance of winning the group, so it's not a disaster. It has to be. It's one of those where you have to look at it and think, well, hopefully they won't. That won't affect confidence. Going into a very big game against Chelsea tomorrow, but you have to see. But I think it obviously the management of the game after half time isn't great. But then, having said that, again, having watched it back, there's a set piece goal which is a very good goal for 3-1. There's a penalty which is a dark penalty, but Liverpool actually do quite well at 3-2 for about 20 minutes managing the game out, but then obviously they get that late set piece again. So
I heard that Moreno was a bit exposed again.
Yeah,
first time in a while.
He gives away the penalty, and he obviously
gives away the foul for the first goal as well.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
I don't want to pick on anyone particularly because of what I've read, but I heard that it was a bit of a weak link for Liverpool on the night.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair comment. He's had a bit of a mare. Second half, he's done okay first, but second half, he's obviously, and it's a bit of a strange one with him. I think
he's had a decent season so far, hasn't he? So
yeah, I think his problem, and it's a problem with a lot of Liverpool defenders, and Lovren has the same issue, and I think Sacco had the same issue before him, is that his bad game is a really bad game. So he'll put in a 7 or 8 out of 10 performance, and then he'll put on a 1 or 2 2 or 3 out of 10. So you want somebody really who can put in a below par performance but still give you a 5. But he isn't going to give you that 5, and I think Lovren's the same. I think that's the problem. You need more of those players.
You act like an Andy Robertson, somebody consistent.
Well, I mean, he hasn't played enough, has he? Really? I mean, I'm sure he's, you couldn't blame him. I'm sure he's a bit. But then, having said that, until Tuesday, he's been kept out of the team on form, and Klopp's very much that kind of manager. Be interesting to see what he does tomorrow. I think he'll personally still start with Moreno.
I'm sure he will.
Whether that would be a mistake to me or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, and I mean, the other thing. It's obviously a bit mad, but the fact that the manager told the players at half time that he was suffering from cancer, the Sevilla manager. I mean,
well, that was rumoured, but apparently the players were actually told on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was one of those sort of stories that was doing the rounds at the time.
Okay,
but I think that's been put to bed now.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. I'd heard it, but yeah, because I was thinking, well, no wonder they were motivated. Because you would be very, very motivated, wouldn't you, if something like that happened? But I suppose you still would be, though, even though if you've been told on Sunday. But yeah, so it's a bit of an odd one, but hopefully they'll get the job done against Spartak. Obviously, other games, United lost to a late goal, but there doesn't seem to be much drama. It seems like they'll probably go through.
I don't think there's any threat of them not getting through, is there? I mean,
they just need a point, don't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Game. Yeah,
I think they'd need to lose something like 3 or 4-0 not to go through, and they're obviously at home. I can't remember.
I think it's all in their favour, and again, as it should be really with that group. So that's those that you're through, and then City obviously, and then you just got Chelsea.
Chelsea obviously had a good win after they'd struggled a bit, so but they'll probably, you would imagine they'd probably go through now, although they might be second in the group because Roma think results have gone in Roma's favour, haven't they?
It sort of depends, because I think the final group games, I think Roma have got Qarabag, and I think Chelsea have got their second game against Atletico at Stamford Bridge, and Atletico can now still get through.
Ah, okay.
So there's a lot riding on that final.
Also, it's not so much. So it's still a bit to do for Chelsea, probably.
Yeah, they need to get a result, I think.
Yeah.
I suppose, it's good to see all the English teams
I've never subscribed to that theory.
starting to get. Well, if only for the coefficient, because only needs to lose 2 places, and suddenly Spurs and Liverpool looking a little bit more dicey.
Yeah, that's true.
So I like it just on that. I mean, Mark, how are Arsenal's Champions League hopes this year? How are they getting on?
Absolutely. There's no need for that.
I heard you lost 1-0 in Cologne or something.
We did.
Yeah.
We did, but it didn't really matter because we won the group.
Needless needle. Yeah, they'd already won the group. They put it to bed. It's the Arsenal kids.
I just felt I needed to ask because I wanted to know if they were looking to progress into the group, through the group or not.
Well, exactly. In fairness, I think it was meant as a barb, but let's actually drill down into it a bit, because I mean, my theory of it is, right, and no Arsenal fan is ever going to tell me that they wanted to be in the Europa League. Obviously, they didn't. That said, I mean, the accusation for the last God knows how many seasons is that Arsenal have a good start, and then February rolls round and they get knocked out of the Champions League, usually to Bayern, for some reason.
Or Barca.
And that can't happen this year.
No.
And in some ways you've got to think, well, it's a bit of a reset button. It's a chance to. It's not ideal. It's never ideal to be in the Europa League. There's loads of games, but the fact is, it's a bit of a reset button. It's a bit of a chance for fringe players to get a run out. A bit of a chance for people like Jack Wilshere to rehabilitate his way in. But he's doing all right though, isn't he? He's doing all right there.
Now.
Yeah, until his ankle falls off. But yeah, I wanted to go to you, Mark, because in all seriousness, there's absolutely no bants meant. How are you finding the Europa League?
It's fine. At the end of the day, it's a European competition. Obviously, we'd rather be in the Champions League, but we've won our group with a game to spare.
So did we. I had Dortmund and Real in it. I know we just touched on it. I just want to say it again.
It's all getting a bit. It's all getting a bit 606 forums in here, isn't
Sorry,
it?
no, you carry on. I just wanted to.
Apologies to the 606 forums.
Just wanted to reiterate.
We'll see what happens
the golfing class.
We'll see what happens when they do the knockout draw and you get Barcelona. We'll see what happens.
We'll take them over 2 legs.
That's the thing, though. Please record that for posterity. Let's not lose that. That's the thing, though. I mean, there's every chance, right? And there's not every chance that Arsenal fans, because Arsenal are one of the strongest teams in the Europa League. I know that in the Champions League there will be a bunch of third places. I mean, let's face it, could be Liverpool and possibly Chelsea.
Atletico possibly as well, and it could.
I know they get parachuted in, but you'd still think that Arsenal have a good chance of going very far in that competition, and obviously the prize at the end is also a Champions League place.
Exactly. I think it really depends. Obviously, from now on, we've been playing sort of like fringe sides, youngsters mixed with a few fringe players. It'd be interesting to see if Wenger starts going with a few more experienced players. Now we've got to the knockout stage, but we'll just have to see. Like you say, at the end of it, there is a Champions League place at stake. Yeah. So,
and with the 6 into 4 at the moment, nobody apart from possibly Man City, possibly United, is really guaranteed a Champions League space at the moment. So there's actually room to have a go in that competition if you come to sort of February and you're something like 8 points behind. I mean the other thing about the teams as well, it's not ideal with the Europa League because it seems to be about 1 billion rounds before you get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
But that said, that doesn't mean that you might meet a team the next round that you'd feel that Arsenal should beat, and they probably could put out a reasonably and what you might call understrength side to beat them.
Yeah, I think we just have to be careful because any team that's got through to the knockout stage is going to be obviously one of the better teams in the competition. Yeah. So I think we just have to be careful. But it depends what Wenger's priority is. I mean, I think what he obviously wants to get back in the Champions League through the league.
Yeah.
But that's it's obviously possible. But there's like you say, there's 6 teams going for 4 places.
Yeah, I mean his issue with the league route is that he could do an Arsene Wenger season and score something like 76 points. That's fairly par. That's quite a good total and finish 5th.
Yeah, well, happened last season, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think you can scoff at the Europa League all you want. We might be playing in it after Christmas, but I mean, I think you'd rather be in Arsenal's position than Everton's position, definitely.
Well, yeah, they're just in free fall.
Yeah,
both really, aren't they? In the league and in Europe, they've just been embarrassed all through their group.
I mean, just to take the tribalism out of it for a minute, I know I was sort of winding Mark up there, but I don't like to see a European competition that used to have such pedigree kind of being treated like a continental FA Cup. And don't get me wrong, I know Manchester United obviously won it the other year, and then the year before I think Liverpool made the final.
Yep.
So it leads me to believe that once an English club gets so far in it, they do then, take it seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know what the approach to it across the rest of Europe is. I don't know what.
I think it's my feeling has always been that a lot of clubs take it very seriously in Europe. I think my understanding is that it is an English thing where it's slightly undervalued. But then, like you said, the previous 2 seasons but English teams, reached the final and won it. And I think English teams will take it seriously at a point, but it's got to be at the right point for them. If they're in March 6th, 12 points adrift or whatever, then they're going to be looking at it because it's a good route back into Europe and it's a trophy as well, and it's a day out and all that stuff. But I mean, and the problem is as well, too many rounds. So it's a lot of fatigue for your players. I mean, personally, my personal opinion was always of the view that I don't know why they had to put in the league format. I always liked the fact that it was the UEFA Cup. So you had the Champions League, which the UEFA Cup's just a straight out for a knockout competition. And I don't really know why they changed it. I think that's not helped.
I think they almost wanted like a mini Champions League.
Yeah.
Not only for the revenue I suppose they thought it would bring, but also because they thought, well, that was successful. Let's do a copycat format almost for the sort of next batch of clubs down, and if anything, it's probably worked against them, because I think the drama of 2 straight knockout legs, I think actually probably adds a bit more excitement to it, or your chances of winning it are greatly diminished. I think really on a straight knockout, because you only just need to not turn up one.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's kind of the jeopardy of it as well, isn't it?
Well, it'd be like FA Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, obviously you get 2 legs, but it's still, I mean, people said that the Champions League. I mean, the Champions League. This is digressing onto a point slightly. People always compare the Champions League and to the old stage where it's called the European Cup, although it sort of still is to me. But and they always go, but teams could get knocked out. Teams could get a crack Eastern European outfit and be out by October because you get a bad away, and they'd say it's hard. Listen, it's harder now because you're playing against the likes of Bayern and Barca, and you're playing against the second best and third best teams in strong leagues. But there certainly was an element of, back in the old days, well, if we don't turn up, you go somewhere like go somewhere in the middle of Poland in like November or something. Don't turn up, and then you're 3-0 down, and then you've got it all to do at home, and then before you know it, you're out. It's quite exciting, but obviously quite terrifying as well.
I think if it was down to me, I'd shrink the competition. I'd only have maybe the top 2 in it, and I'd bring all the bigger clubs that didn't quite make it into the UEFA Cup as it was.
Yeah.
And it just adds more appeal. I know they've done it for financial reasons more than anything, and perhaps it wouldn't work now. But just to touch on some of the bigger clubs that Arsenal could
let's pull it back into Arsenal.
So you got Atletico Bilbao, which difficult place to go. Villarreal, Lazio. What else have we got? AC Milan, Braga, perhaps, and Lyon. I mean, all of those clubs, Braga perhaps with the exception, are clubs you wouldn't necessarily fancy. I mean, Arsenal, again, with the squad capability, would probably fancy themselves over 2 legs against those, but they're dangerous games. Lyon and AC Milan particularly.
Well, I think with our best side out, you'd fancy the chances.
I think Arsenal could be any of those teams. Not comfortably, but certainly on their day.
But like I say, it depends how Wenger wants to do it. If he's going to bring some of the big guns into the team, now he's into the knockout stage, because it's kind of what Man United did last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
They played in the group stages, played a lot of their kids and fringe players, and then obviously they suddenly got to quarterfinals, and I thought, we'll take this seriously now. And well, it was a little bit different for them because they were way down the league, weren't they? They were pretty much out of getting in the Champions League through the actual league position.
Yeah.
So they just went for it, and obviously it came off for them. So, but I hope that we do take it seriously coming into the knockout stage now, because
you'd like to win it.
I'd like to win it. It's a European trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
it's a trophy at the end of the day.
yeah.
Should we say?
I think that's it, though, isn't it? And like I said, it's a break from the routine of the Champions League stuff. It's a break from, it's something different. It's not all. It doesn't always seem positive, and people can deride it. But like you say, you get towards the end of it. It's a Champions League place at stake. It's a trophy. It's, if you're getting to the final, it's always exciting getting to a final. You go out for it and make a day of it, and people can obviously go over as well if they can get tickets, which is obviously a great experience. I don't know where the final is this year, actually, off the top of my head.
I can't remember. I did
Morrison's car park.
Brought it back in. You couldn't wait.
Sorry. Speaking
I'm getting
of putting things down, I made a flippant remark a short time ago about Celtic. I did want to touch on them if we could, because obviously they did get heavily beaten again this week by obviously a much classier and more expensively assembled side. But for their fans each year, essentially at the moment with Rangers struggling, they've walked the league. I think they're unbeaten in a year and a half or something like that now in
it's
SPL.
ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, they can't get the financial clout to enable them to push through in Europe. So for the fans, what is it that can excite them each year in going into the Champions League if all that's going to happen is they're going to take a couple of batterings and then find themselves in the Europa League anyway? Is there any draw for them in it anymore? I mean, it's great to go and see these big players and big clubs come to your ground or go to their ground, but if you're going to get walloped and take no real pleasure from it, what does a fan take from that?
Unfortunately, it kind of really shows the sort of quality of the Scottish Premier League, as in, Celtic got far the best squad, and you see obviously because they're like just walking that really, but then as soon as they take that squad into Europe, it's just not up to scratch at all.
I mean, I saw that Celtic essentially have had we're almost like a two-legged playoff with Anderlecht for the Europa League spot, and that's basically what the competition has been for them, an elongated two-leg affair to make it into the Europa League. And I just wonder if I know it's coffers coming into the club if nothing else, but I just wonder what the point is in it for a club like Celtic who demolish domestic rivals, and yet each year they get into like the major glitz of the European competition, and then they just can't live with it. I know they have the occasional result, and I don't mean to gloss over that, but if this is what the future holds for them, to get into the competition and then be embarrassed by somebody like PSG, who can do it to anyone, by the way, I should say, but
yeah, I think this year's been a little bit different in the fact they've conceded a lot of goals. They've been heavily beaten a couple of times already. Like you say, PSG, that on a good day they could do that to anyone. Trying to say who's the other team in their group? Bayern, and obviously Bayern heavily beat him as well. And any team that's got Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern in their group are going to think we're going to struggle here.
Yeah.
But this year it's just a little worse for Celtic because they've been heavily beaten a few times.
Does it reach a point where I think they've got to qualify for the Champions League now? Like just winning their league, I think they still have to play a qualifying round. I wouldn't want to take it away, and I'm sure there's plenty of Celtic fans who also wouldn't want to lose it. But is there an argument that they're almost better off not going into that competition at the moment? Because from a confidence point of view, you're going to keep coming up against these sides that are going to walk past you. Would they almost be better focusing on trying to win the Europa League, for example?
But then they come back with the argument and just say, well, you know, we're the champions of our division, so we deserve to be in the Champions League. Okay, they may not have a squad good enough to actually compete properly in the Champions League at the moment, but there's a lot of teams. I mean, there's a lot of leagues that, you know, you'll have teams run away with their respective leagues.
Maribor are another case.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously it comes into the Champions League, and just the quality of some of the other, you know, the top leagues around the country, and it's just not up to it.
Because we're British and Celtic obviously come with quite a rich history.
Yeah.
It just seems a shame to see them get into tournaments each year like the Champions League and have to suffer things like that.
Well, it is a shame, but
Neil's face looks vexed. I don't think he necessarily agrees with me on this.
No. I mean, I think what's your thing if you're a Celtic fan? You're probably thinking, can we luck out with the draw one year? So I mean, I know you get someone from pot 1, pot 2, but there are, you know, on paper, and it's still up for grabs about whether Liverpool are going to go through. But on paper, that looks like a comparatively kind group. United's the same. Okay, I know they're, you know, in different seeds, but, you know, if Celtic have been put into one of those groups, you do feel like not necessarily would they have qualified, but perhaps they might still be fighting for a second spot, you know, second or third, because, you know, that, you know, Bayern and PSG, that's a double whammy, really.
Well, they're obviously two of the big heavyweights of European football. So
yeah, I'm not trying to do Celtic down.
No. I totally get where you're coming from, and I suppose, you know, the only way to really find out would be to ask Celtic fans and say, how is this journey going for you? You know, are you still happy with the fact that, you know, you're getting great teams, play great teams at home, but you're conceding a lot of goals and not really competing? Do you think, you know? But I think that'd be my position if I was a Celtic fan. I think I'd be just, you know, obviously hoping to continue in it, but hoping for a kind of draw. But obviously, you know, you get where you're drawn, and you know that could be years away, or it could be next year.
You could say, obviously, all these, like I say, these heavy defeats they're having is not good for them, but it's kind of valuable experience, really.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then they know that. So okay, you know, if they drew these teams again, they can go back to this year and just say, well, you know, what did we do wrong? You know, because
what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. We've got heavily beaten. You know, we need to be able to at least be in the game. You know, we may still lose it, but, you know, if we lose it, say like 2-1 or something like that, at least we've, you know, it looks like we've actually competed rather than, you know, getting thrashed 7-1. It looks like it's just a completely one-sided game.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you sort of did mention it, but obviously in the past, Celtic Park has come up trumps for them a bit. You know, they've beaten the likes of Barcelona there before.
Yeah.
It's been not a fortress, but it's been a difficult place for teams to go.
Good atmosphere there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it begs bigger questions about both the SPL's future and probably what clubs should really be taking part in what is a Champions League. I respect that weaker divisions have still got champions, but I just wonder, when you've got such disparity between the haves and the have-nots in that competition, I don't know how it's benefit. Apart from the financial reward, I don't see how it's beneficial for some of the smaller clubs to come in and get walloped every week. It's just...
Yeah, it's a bit... I know where you're coming from. It's a bit like the San Marino argument, isn't it?
Yes.
It feels pointless having San Marino in an international qualifiers group when, you know, with all due respect to San Marino, they should be playing teams around their own level because they're going to gain more out of that. But I suppose, you know, it's difficult because if you create a two-tier system, where do you go with it? And like Mark made the point, you know, why are champions of one league less valid than any other?
Yeah, and that's the problem.
It's a hard one to solve that, I think.
Because they also go, obviously some leagues you get straight in, other leagues go into qualifiers, but if you get through the qualifiers, then you can say, well, you know, we're there on merit because you've got through our qualifiers.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. I think particularly, you know, going through the long-winded roads they have to get there sometimes.
Finish part-timers in late June or early July or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's plenty of Europe chat, I think, gents. We'll draw a line under that one. I'm sure we will discuss Europe again. There's the final round of fixtures in a couple of weeks. Although I'm just gonna, I was gonna bring up the sort of slightly staying with it, in that I was going to bring up the complaints from the Liverpool fans after the Sevilla fixture. Just a bit more than disappointing. It's a bit of an outrage, really, what went on, because they weren't treated well by the stewards or the police. There were people being turned away, not being let in before the game started, despite being there well within time, and just a general atmosphere. I mean, it's been covered quite well otherwhere, so I was just going to briefly mention it, but it's just very disappointing to have this sort of feeling that football fans again are being treated as criminals almost. It's almost as a menace, really. It's sort of it's very much, from what I could gather, it's very much we'll herd you in, then you go and sit anywhere, and then you get kept in at the end of the game. And I feel I'm pretty disappointed with that, because I thought it's 2017, we should be moving beyond that kind of thing now.
Was there physical violence after the game again between the fans and the police then, or?
I mean, there's not been anything sort of mass reported or anything. There's been isolated incidents, like I heard a woman was punched, and it was something to do with a flag that she wanted to put up, and they weren't receptive to that kind of idea. Some flags got banned because they thought they had political messages on them, which just seemed bizarre. But
so it was somewhat overzealous, but
I think so, and I think this is what I know you mentioned as well off air, that Spurs went there a few years ago, went to Sevilla, had the same problem, and I want to emphasise that everything that I'd heard as well was that the city of Seville, it's wonderful and a great place to go, but it was just when people went to the match, that's when the problems happened, and it was similar, I think, for Leicester fans when they went there earlier this year. So it just seems a bit odd. I don't, we don't go to games that often, so we're not very qualified to talk about it. But I just don't, I feel it's strange that football fans are treated in one way, and then you get, fans of other sports treated completely differently.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did touch on this off air, and to a degree, I understand why football fans are not given a rough ride, but I can understand sometimes why they're treated differently to other sports, because I do think it's a reputational thing. Whether it's valid or not is a different question, but I think people are concerned that football fans in big groups who've had a drink, they look at the history, say, of England fans going to World Cups and European Championships, and I think, again, like I said, it's an overzealous defensive posturing almost to make sure that there is no trouble.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that excuses violence, by the way. I wonder if that's one of the reason behind it.
I just think it kind of needs to be shed a bit. I mean, again, and this isn't having a pop at Arsenal, but it was a similar thing with the Cologne fans, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And they weren't causing any trouble. They were just walking down the street. There was a lot of them, and I think it sort of spooked people because it was something we hadn't seen. But they were just singing songs, just enjoying themselves, just being football fans, just having a football fan culture, and that's what you want, because you don't want people to be sort of robots who are just sort of shepherded in and out, sit there and then go home and don't sing or don't say anything, and
Yeah, it's meant to be entertaining. It's supposed to be out on a day out or a night out. But
it's supposed to be interactive as well, isn't it?
The only thing about the Cologne thing, if you've got thousands of fans who didn't have tickets, who I think were sort of hanging around outside the ground on the hope of getting in, I think that can cause problems. And I know there's not a lot you can do to stop extra fans travelling, but I think there were several thousand fans, more than could have possibly got into the Emirates that night, and I think that I can understand why a police force would be concerned about how to manage that, because a few hundred bobbies isn't going to control a crowd of 5,000 or 6,000 if things got out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that was overplayed, and I heard there weren't, but I mean, I say that I'm dealing with hearsay. I could be wrong, but I heard that was
pure and simple.
Sorry, wonderful reference, beautiful. I think it's just I just don't don't feel that. I think it's unhelpful in some ways when people are heavy-handed with football fans, because I think then football fans will respond in kind. It's kind of a catch-22. You treat people like animals, and then they'll respond like animals. They'll get their backs up. Whereas I think, you know, a more kind of open, inclusive approach is probably better. You know, likes of Pulis who, you know, I'll have a chat with you on match day, and they're not just sort of, you know, especially if you're an away fan, they're not just trying to shove you from here to here, you know. But,
or the copper that had a dance with somebody at the Notting Hill Carnival earlier.
Oh yeah, there's a few there. There's one at the Manchester concert as well, wasn't there, for the Ariana Grande. Yeah, no, that's not. I mean, that's a more sort of a societal point, really. But it's nice to see a human face, the police. You know, you don't want to see them as a faceless bureaucrat telling you to go somewhere and stand there. So
I think with football fans, it's isolated moments that people remember and focus on. So like, I'm sitting here thinking, what was the last violent act I remember? And it was a woman a few months ago. I think it was an FA Cup game who punched a horse.
Was that the Newcastle thing, or was that a different
I
one?
can't give you the details, unfortunately, because I can't remember the specifics. I just remember it was a woman who punched a horse. And that's the sort of thing you remember, and yet it's probably the sort of thing that happens once in a blue. It's never acceptable.
Yeah, no, we don't want to be punching horses, anyone. No, I think you're right. I think that's the thing. These isolated incidents stay with people, but people are very quick to use them as representative of a broad group of football fans, most of whom would never cause any trouble. Just want to go and support
like us,
their team. Really. Yeah, when we can go to games, obviously. Just want to go and support the team and sing the songs and have a good time and go home. You know, and that is the vast majority of football fans. Of course, there are troublemakers all the time. You know, you see things on late night trains, nothing to do with football, but
no, absolutely,
all that sort of stuff.
I wonder with the Spanish police, because obviously they got a lot of news coverage after the Catalan referendum result a month or so back, and that was quite heavy-handed as well. So
Yes,
I wonder if it's
yeah.
just almost like a state directive for the police to be like that, or whether or not some do just get a bit overexcited as part of their duty and perhaps take their powers a bit too far.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. You would suspect that this sort of thing is coming from the top and there's a directive being laid down, but who knows? You could get some overzealous people, but yeah, I think it's just a shame, and it's a shame that people go away to Europe and they want to have a wonderful time and enjoy themselves and support their team, and then it's a shame that some of them can't even get in the ground. That's not right. But I think it's just a bit of it's just something that needs to be looked at, really.
I'm going to take this off on a light-hearted tangent.
Please do.
I'm going to say, speaking of physical violence,
Yeah.
Tony Pulis was
Wonderful.
given the boot this week.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's segue into we'll leave that behind anyway. But yeah, let's segue into everyone's favourite baseball cap wearing, tracksuit sporting Welshman. Yes, he's gone. It is a strange one in the sense that I think everyone has said it, Mark, in that West Brom, probably what the manager of West Brom need right now is Tony Pulis. So, but you can also understand why they've sacked him. So it's a bit of a strange kind of situation they find themselves in. I don't really know what they're going to do because I don't know what West Brom's move is from here.
No, I can see why they sacked him, because I think they won their first 2 games of the season, haven't won since.
Yeah.
But apart from that, the sort of manager you want to get somebody, to obviously get a team out of that position is someone like Tony Pulis, because he's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and a baseball cap. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see where West Brom go from here. I mean, Pulis could be one for the Wells job, possibly.
That seems to be the talk, doesn't it, at the moment?
But they're just linking him because of the fact he is Welsh.
Yeah, yeah. Tom Jones has also been linked with the job.
Yep.
Lead singer of the Stereophonics.
Kelly Jones.
Yeah. I think it's I mean, they were sort of. I think the thing is with West Brom, in their current incarnation is that they'd started to concede quite a lot of goals. And one thing Tony Pulis sides generally don't do, Dan, is concede a lot of goals. So you sort of think, well, if you've lost your core kind of strength, where do you go from here? Because, with the greatest respect to the guy, he's not going to have them playing fast, attacking football. So I can sort of see it from their point of view. But having said that, again, and it's a bit like the Everton scenario, it's all very well sacking someone if you've got an idea of who's going to come in next, and I'm not sure they do.
No. The frightening thing for a West Ham fan, West Brom fan, West Ham at awful too.
The Wests. How are they doing, by the way?
The Wests.
1-1 draw.
I think they're both dead, actually. We're not talking about not Fred and Rose.
Another light-hearted digression. Love it.
Okay.
Courtsman one week and serial killers next. Beautiful.
Don't say we don't diversify.
Absolutely.
No, I think the frightening thing for West Brom fans is that normally Tony Pulis will get you to 40 points and then you drop off. This year, they've got to 10, 12 points and they're already struggling. So I can totally understand why they'd make the move now. The only thing is, and I've argued this point for many a pod now, I don't know where certain clubs think they should be. I think West Brom will almost certainly finish, or would have finished under Pulis somewhere between 10th and, 17th. They would have finished in that bracket above the drop zone. Whether they're playing the football they want or getting the results they want, arguable. But they probably would have been safe. With his record, would suggest they'd have been safe. So what do West Brom want to do? Do they want to open up, play expansive football where they may well get beat 4 or 5 every other week? Because they're not going to attract big name players there. Whoever the manager is, whoever that chairman is, that's probably not going to happen either. What do West Brom want? Because whoever they bring in, you've got Big Sam.
Yep.
Alan Pardew, I heard, was a front runner.
Yeah, he's an early favourite, isn't he?
Odd favourite too. Slaven Bilic reportedly turned down an approach this week. I don't know what's the difference in taking out a Pulis and putting in an Allardyce, or taking out a Pulis and putting in a Pardew.
Yeah.
I don't see what the sense in that is. You may as well let the guy get on with the job that everybody knows he can do.
Yeah, I get where you come from. I suppose they banked on the whole let's freshen things up approach. This isn't working, which you can understand. I think they've got deeper issues. Doesn't look like a great squad to me, and certainly they're by far not the only team in this league with this problem. But they don't seem to score a lot of goals either, which would worry me. It seems like Rondon, everything that he's kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of form. Doesn't seem like Jay Rodriguez is a decent player, but he's probably not going to get you 15 goals a season. So it's quite hard to see in the midfield as well. I mean, as you would expect, really, with a Tony Pulis side, the midfield doesn't look hugely mobile. Losing Darren Fletcher is actually probably quite a blow for them as well, because I think he does a good job of screening the back four. So it's hard to know what any manager. I mean, you know, if Allardyce came in, you'd think he'll Allardyce them and get them playing some sort of alehouse football and keep them up.
I mean, let's try and put yourself in a position of the West Brom owner now, because he's a relatively new owner, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I think a year or so.
Oh yes, they've had a takeover not that long ago, haven't they?
So he's got an opportunity now to put somebody in charge who he wants. Obviously, Pulis was the incumbent they kept. Now is his chance to put a print down and pick a manager he wants. Imagine you're him, based on the reputation of where West Brom are at the moment. Who do you pick? Who do you go after? Because I honestly don't know.
Well, I think you want to be looking at people like Marco Silva, for example.
Yeah.
I know he's only just gone at Watford.
But that was a gamble when he went to Hull. Everybody was saying this guy knows nothing about the Premier League. What's he going to do with a club that struggles? And obviously it panned out.
Yeah,
Did
well,
West Brom take that gamble?
Well, that's the thing. But he's doing all right. He's doing all right for Watford at the moment. I mean, he probably won't want to leave Watford. I think if he does leave, it would need to be
it needs to be a
top
like
6 club. Really for him to leave, but it is a difficult one because you have a look at the people that are sort of available. Unless you go down to the it's risky doing that, but you could look at the Wolves manager, for example. Also, they're top of the league, doing really well. Used to manage Porto, so he's got European experience. He could be one to look at.
It would be a completely different change from Pulis.
It would. They'd have to give him a bit of money in order to probably play that sort of football, because I think he's had money at Wolves.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Yeah, he has, and he's bought well, and they've scored a lot of goals. Wolves. And
I do quite like that idea, just for the absolute needle it'll bring as well, though, because they hate each other, don't they?
True, I didn't actually think about that.
Good point.
I'd only just realised it myself.
Yeah. So, well, in which case, then Wolves won't release him.
No, I don't think I want to go. But apart from that, it's just the same people just pop up, don't they?
That's it. I mean,
David O'Leary might come out of the woodwork. But
I mean, Thomas Tuchel's available. Supposedly he's linked with going to Chelsea in the summer when they think Conte's going to move on. But
there was talk of Everton as well, I think.
I think he turned down Everton, didn't he?
Did he?
Well, then no disrespect here again intended, but if he's turned down Everton, who've got a bit of money and looking to progress, then he's going to turn down West Brom. So they can't go for that stature of manager. They need to stay up this year, which means employing somebody probably short term to do the job.
Well, they kind of got, as at the moment, Gary Megson, obviously used to be the manager.
Yeah, number two.
Obviously, he was number two to Pulis, and he's now caretaker.
If he gets it to the end of the season, they'll go down.
Yeah.
Do you know, a mad thought's popped in my head. I don't really know why, but what about Craig Shakespeare? I mean, don't get me wrong. He's another one of that set of the Pardew's and the
I can't give that guy
Allardyce's, and I'm even going to throw in the name of Alan Kirbishley, who's probably third favourite for the job. Luckiest for all jobs.
But I think he has actually. He's got another job now. But Ranieri, is he?
Yeah, he's at Nantes.
Oh no, is he?
Fifth in the French league. Down on the European corner coming soon.
we're on tenterhooks waiting for that to come back.
And maybe next week.
Mm-hmm.
Please
have a look into it.
Maybe. What about somebody like Chris Hughton? Would he leave Brighton? I think he does a good job wherever he goes, but again, he's not going to excite anybody.
No, I think
he's the type of manager they probably would need.
I
don't think he would go there.
No, I don't think at the moment. I think he's got a project. He's got a project at Brighton, and it's going all right at the moment.
Yeah,
and I think he will want to see how he does this season, and then. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, everywhere he's gone, he's done a decent job.
That's who I'd go after, I think.
We'll wait and see. Who could it be? Well, I'm sure we'll find out in due course.
Maybe by the next pod they might have a manager, and we'll see. And it will probably be
Everton won't.
I was going to say we're still waiting for Everton to appoint somebody.
Yeah,
and Unzi's going to get that, isn't he?
Not now,
probably.
I think he will.
Not after yesterday.
Did you see? He's just basically queried the desire of some of these players and say, some of these players blatantly don't want to be here.
The thing is, I don't know. I assume he's not just saying it off the back of yesterday's result.
Well,
they were already out, right? So
they were.
And they conceded 3 in the last 10 minutes, which I know isn't an excuse, but you get stuff 5-1 and you think, they've obviously got hit on the break a couple of times looking for a goal.
Celtic fans will be saying that Everton shouldn't be allowed in the Europa League.
I don't know. I just don't know where else Everton go, because, like we said, I think Marco Silva was talked about, but I think he's either turned the job down or Watford have rejected an approach. Allardyce has said no, possibly because I think he found out they weren't his first choice, or they didn't want to give him a long enough contract.
Yeah, I think they only wanted to give him a contract to the end of the season, didn't they? And they wanted something more long term. So
Simeone was PR move, clearly.
Yeah, he's come out now and said he's got no interest, hasn't he? So
yeah, I don't know where they go. I can't see Sean Dyche. That's all gone really quiet.
So you've got 2 clubs that have made changes, and yet you can't see an obvious pathway for them getting a successor that will pick them up. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Everton will. I think there's so much talent.
Yeah,
I don't think it will be a too good to go down scenario.
I don't think they will go down. I've maintained it all. I'm fully expecting them to turn up at our place in 2 weeks and scrap out a 1-0 win. That's how pessimistic I am.
I need to start somewhere, and that could be could be as good a place as any for.
Yeah, no, it feels like it's written in the stars because they're doing so badly, but that's just me, the eternal pessimist. But yeah, But we'll see. Next pod, maybe both will have managers, or maybe neither will.
Let's see.
Or maybe
they've
both
got this weekend.
I was just going to say maybe both will, and they're both appoint somebody that we haven't mentioned at all.
Yeah, probably. It'll probably be. Well, I can't even think of somebody.
George Graham.
George Graham. He's doing an interview the other day. Actually.
How was he?
Yeah.
I don't know. Martin Clunes.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Good, yeah. Who knows?
I think we're into the realms of wild speculation. So let's just have a brief chat about the weekend's fixtures. A few standout game, probably Liverpool versus Chelsea. Two teams who are in probably fairly similar form at the moment. Obviously, Liverpool had the midweek game, but other than that, league-wise, they're doing fairly well. Chelsea likewise after a bit of a slow start. So
there'll definitely be goals in that game.
Oh, you would have thought so.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, I mean, Liverpool kept clean sheets in the last couple of games, not all of them, but recently. But yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that.
Would you take a point, or is it you're too far behind the sort of leading pack now, or the leaders in order to?
I don't know.
I think being at home, you've really got.
You're at home, and I think as well. I'm not even sure it's the leaders thing, although that obviously does come into it. But it's the fact that Liverpool have obviously beat Arsenal, but have struggled in other games against the big clubs this season. Shipped 9 against City and Spurs, inclusive. Obviously, both of those were away, but I think they need a bit of a big performance. So, I mean, you could say, okay, maybe if it was a draw and they played well, that wouldn't be the end of the world. But yeah, I think they should be looking for a win.
See, I think because you never know what's going to happen with City, but I think because Liverpool essentially are in a top 4 race rather than a championship race, I almost think they'd be better off taking the point alongside a top 4 rival.
But I see where you're coming from, but you could also say obviously it's the classic 6-pointer, isn't it? So
it is. I just fancy the Liverpool again with your defence.
A draw isn't a disaster. Chelsea aren't quite the team they were last year, but they're still the champions. They've still got very good players. They've still got Eden Hazard, Morata's doing well. Still obviously got lots of attacking talent, and they're quite solid as well, even without they've bombed out Luiz, but they're still doing quite well without him. So a point is not a disaster, but I'd be looking for all 3, to be honest.
Just sort of depends what Liverpool turns up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, they can, as we saw on Tuesday, although they didn't play that well, they can sort of play well and badly in the same game to an extent. So yeah, I agree with Mark. There'll be goals. I wouldn't like to predict any kind of scoreline, but obviously hoping for a win. Burnley, Arsenal, tricky one for Arsenal, Mark, but I sort of slightly fancy them to eke out a result here.
Well, you'd hope that. Also, that one's a Sunday game.
Yeah.
But you'd hope that the win against Spurs last weekend has given a lot of confidence.
I'm amazed you haven't mentioned that beforehand. Bear in mind the stick.
Do you know what? I genuinely forgotten about that.
I hadn't. I was just sat here waiting for him.
No, I didn't actually watch the game anyway. So.
Oh yeah, you
But 58 minutes in, he's taken. I mean, fair play.
He's been a good lad, and you were kept throwing barbs in his direction.
I'm going to enjoy being on top for as long as possible. Sorry, Mark.
But yeah, you'd hope that that's given us some confidence, and we go into that. But obviously, Burnley doing well. I think Burnley are just above us at the moment in the league. I think level on points.
Yeah, they're level on points with us. Yeah.
But
this is where Arsenal either now go on a run for 10 games and suddenly look a good side again, or they'll follow up last week's performance, which was very good, I have to say. Very good, fully deserved, despite the nature of the goals. But they might go to Burnley and no, I mean, I'll try.
It's giving me a look. No.
The first goal, dodgy free kick and offside. But aside from that, Arsenal deserve to win, so forget that. But going to Burnley is traditionally perhaps a sort of thing where you'll go there and lose 1-0. So you need to kind of keep a consistent run going to make that win last weekend worthwhile.
Well, exactly. I think we need to go into this one obviously build on it, because next weekend we've got another tough game against United.
Oh,
so
you've got United at home, haven't you?
So yeah, I think we've just got to just build on the performance last weekend and get the win, and hopefully we can then obviously get up the table a bit more.
Yeah, I think Burnley are a funny side in that they're obviously doing really well, but they picked up actually a lot of their points away from home,
which is not like them.
Last season it was complete opposite, and I get the feeling that you know what you're going to get. They're obviously going to work hard and absolutely they're a fit side and all the rest of it, but I think Arsenal proved too much for them by a couple of goals in the end. Not it won't be an embarrassment, but maybe 2-0.
No, I think it'd be a lot. I think it'd be the odd goal, to be honest. But that could easily go either way. I think, like I said, it depends which Arsenal turns up. Really,
it is a strange one. Like Dan Laundy's drawing Pac-Man figures on the piece of paper in front of him, but Dan, I actually don't know who Spurs have got.
They've got Terrell, who was just manager West Brom
at home.
It is, yeah.
Well. Something like that, yeah.
Well, it's a bit more of a home now.
Yeah, winning some games now.
All that nonsense is probably behind us till we don't get a result next, possibly tomorrow. I don't know. Because Pulis has gone, will they be released of shackles, or will that sort of new managerial bounce not happen until they've actually appointed somebody new? I'm not sure. I don't think it'll happen until they've actually got like a new man in there, because obviously they've got kind of a new man who's taking the manager's job on a temporary basis, but he was already there. Megson,
yeah. So
I think Spurs will probably win tomorrow.
I think so,
yeah.
I think it'll be a routine home win.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I don't know if there's any sort of...
There's one stand that stood out for me in slightly negative way is Southampton against Everton. So I think both teams are struggling.
Big game for both teams.
So that could quite feasibly end -2-all.
That's a Sunday game as well, isn't
it? Is that like Sky's pick for Super Sunday?
Oh, they've lucked out there, haven't they? It's going to be 7-all now.
It could be, couldn't it?
Absolute
Everton
goal fest. Yeah. It's a tough one to look at, because both teams are low on confidence, like you said, like you alluded to. Neither is in exactly goal scoring form. I've got a sneaky feeling the Ev might just eke out a 1-0 win, but it's not really based on much other than the fact that I think
they're due to get turn on a performance. Really.
They're due for a performance, and I think Southampton, even though they've struggled for goals, I think Southampton have really struggled for goals and have done for some time. And
because Puel got a lot of the blame for that, but the new guy's been in now since the summer, and
I think what you're seeing is, Puel, I don't think is particularly negative coach, but I don't think he had much to work with, and I think you're seeing that now. It's the same thing with Pellegrino.
Yeah, it is. He's coming. He's not signed any strikers. He's got the same strikers he inherited, and
they've got some good players there, but they're all neat and tidy players, and they're not finishers. Apart from Gabbiadini, who's struggled with injury.
Yeah.
Shane Long,
not a goal scorer really.
Get you a few now and again. Maybe an okay player to have off the bench, but not.
Charlie Austin
really up to it.
Can score goals. We've seen in the Premier League, but can't really stay fit.
No, I don't think they've got enough, and I think Everton might just scrape a win there.
If not Paul Clement, then I suspect that Pellegrino may be the next to go.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Another couple of sort of tepid results,
but then I think I agree with that. But I think they would find themselves in the Everton West Brom boat of
absolutely.
Who are you appointing? But I agree that it could be difficult for him, because he doesn't have the goals. I think when you're down there, it's not okay if you've got a goal scorer or a couple of goal scorers, but it doesn't half help. It just gives you a bit of release of pressure now and again. You can win a game, where if you don't know where your next goal's coming from, you're really struggling.
I know they're by no means out of trouble propping up the league, but Palace having Zaha
back
and
Benteke, of course.
Well, perhaps to a lesser extent, but certainly Zaha, pacey, strong. He's a big deal for them.
Yeah, I think if someone's going to get him out of trouble. Interestingly, terrible research. Who have Palace got on the weekend?
Stoke at home, so I think that's definitely a winnable game.
Yeah. But then Stoke are a funny side as well. They can just turn up and win when you don't expect them to do anything.
We've touched on it before, but Stoke frustrate me because they've got some quality players there somehow, and yet they just can't put together.
Yeah.
You know.
So same kind of band, isn't it? Middle band of teams where you feel like they could kick on, but they won't.
I think the problem is they've got some like you say they've got some talented players there, but they're kind of just very like they're just individuals.
Yeah.
And the way Stoke play doesn't really fit. And I mean, you might they obviously turn on a little bit of magic and stuff, but generally of how Stoke play don't really fit in.
No, I watched them against Brighton. It was quite a good game.
Yeah,
Brighton deserved a point and possibly 3, but it was a good game, and they played their part in that. Scored a good goal.
I don't think Shaqiri's got the weirdest body shape for a footballer you've ever seen. He's like a Lego man.
He's an interesting looking fella,
He's
isn't
got ridiculous like thighs.
Just really square.
Shaqiri's thighs. That's a podcast all in itself.
It is, yeah.
Do an hour on it.
Shaqiri, his hips probably don't lie.
I think we should probably end this podcast now.
I think we need to end on a kind of lighter note than that.
We probably should talk about the rest of Saturday's games as well, briefly. Manchester United against Brighton.
Yeah, home win.
Yeah, you would have thought so. Newcastle against Watford.
Who cares?
Sort of agree with that in a way.
Yeah, Newcastle Newcastle need to get a result sooner or later.
Yeah, they've had a bit of a dip. Yeah, I think they might.
Can't call Watford. They're
very up and down, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think Newcastle might sneak that one.
And Swansea and Bournemouth's got a 0-0 draw written all over it, that one.
Bournemouth did score 4 last weekend.
I did actually, yeah, you're right.
But I tend to agree with you.
They're
another funny team where you always it's almost like you always think they might be down and out, and then they pull out a result. They pulled out a couple of results, and Swansea are another team who are really struggling. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bournemouth went there and won.
Yeah, quite possibly. Although every time I find myself back in the side, you think, well, they'll probably go there and sneak a result. The other side end up winning 3-0. So put 3-0 on that. But
some money on that.
I think if they do get beat, Swansea, I think that's probably the end of Clement. Unfortunately, I just don't think the quality's there for him to be able to keep them up.
Yeah, it's a bit of the same thing though as Southampton, isn't it? And the other teams that we mentioned. What's your next move? I don't know where you go from there. I mean, he did well to keep him up last season. Seems to have seems to have a bit about him tactically. So I'd be slightly reluctant, but I do see where you're coming from in that that they're another team where you feel like they probably don't have a lot of goals in them now, especially now Sigurdsson's gone.
Christmas coming.
Yeah.
Everybody starts to think we're in a bit of trouble. We need to change.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You can see 3 or 4 sackings, but yeah, I just think it's a bit short-sighted, and you might end up in sort of Everton West Brom situation again, where you're ending up with no manager for a couple of weeks. But
I think it's just give him a chance really to get him out of it, because he's obviously a talented manager, but yes, the thing he's just not they're kind of not scoring goals at the moment. Obviously, Tammy Abraham did score a few, but I don't know where the goals are going to come from. Yeah,
and just to round up, obviously Huddersfield against City. I think we all think City will probably put a couple past Huddersfield. Obviously did well, decent home form, and obviously beat United, but don't see City having the same problems.
Unstoppable at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I think that rounds everything up for this week. That's all our previews done, so let's watch them all be very wrong by the time Sunday afternoon rolls round, I'm sure. And that also wraps the pod up for this week. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.